All right, what is going on, people? We are Tottenham TV here, back again with another panel show and making their debut. Oh, sorry, apologies. I have my sound on my laptop, bit of a hiccup there. But look, making their debuts on the We Are Tottenham TV panel show on the channel. Absolute pleasure to have Johnny and Gary from an Echo of Glory podcast. I'm a massive fan of this podcast. I've been watching it since they launched, and I'm so happy to have them on the show. Johnny, thanks for coming on, mate. How are we doing? How are we feeling at the moment?
Appreciate it. How am I feeling? Well, we'll come to that. I'm up and down like a roller coaster with this club, but listen, kind words on our pod and Echo of Glory. I love your shows. Listen, over the years, watching you and your brother and your friends going mad in home end away, great stuff. I love that.
And Gary, I saw you up in Rangers. I don't know if you remember it. I barely remember it as well. Had a few drinks. But when I saw it, I was like, I got to get your number. I got to get you on the show. But thanks for coming on, mate.
No, I really appreciate it. Thank you for the kind words about the show. And similarly, I've got to say, like, the way that you and Ben have grown your channel is phenomenal. So full credit to you guys. Yeah. Absolute exceptional.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, guys. But look, let's get into Spurs now. And obviously, we know it's not been an easy season for us at the moment. We're in a difficult way, albeit on the weekend we did beat Southampton 5-0, which was a bit of relief from the terrible kind of form we've been on and all the question marks about the manager and is the squad good enough, all these kind of things. Obviously, going into that game in Southampton, a lot of people, I mean, I was watching your podcast, I think one of your guests, guest or co-host said that if Ange doesn't win Rangers, Southampton and Man United, he has to be sacked. I think they were quite harsh on that. So I guess the question for you, I go start with Johnny. After that win against Southampton, has any pressure been relieved on Ange? Or, you know, if we do go and lose against United, are the knives still going to be out for him?
I was thinking about this earlier. I think when any manager wins a game, the pressure comes off. Although I remember Ozzy Ardiles getting sacked after a win against West Ham. So you never know with this football club. But I think the pressure would have been obviously multiplied had he lost. We've won. It was an excellent win. Has the pressure come off? Yes. Yeah, naturally. I think you win a game like that, the pressure comes off. Had we drawn, I think the pressure would have come on. I think what's happening at the moment is there's a lot of momentum growing. Spurs fans starting to wonder, is this working? And obviously there's a lot of noise externally about the club from top to bottom, but focusing on the manager, I think a lot of fans are starting to wonder. But what's also happening is that pundits are starting and journos are starting to question it. And I think that starts to push the pressure up a little bit. So naturally, a win anywhere takes the pressure off. A win at Southampton only takes the pressure off, personally for me, a little bit. And I think he's got a really, really tough run coming up. We've got United, we've got Liverpool, Forest, Wolves, who love to beat Spurs. One of those strange bogey clubs that we have. So I think to answer your question, yes, the pressure's come off a little bit, but for me, only a little bit.
Do you feel like the manner of the wins we've been getting this season might be what is kind of saving him? Because I was thinking about this the other day in terms of, obviously, let's be honest, managers have been sacked for less in terms of what the position that we are in at the moment under Ange Postecoglou, 10th after 16 games. You know, the form's been very inconsistent for a while now. But I was thinking, like, let's say we were winning games like in the manner like we were under Nuno, where we were having like one shot a game and like it was a cross that was meant to, it was a cross that went in where it missed everyone and like we were just winning 1-0. And if those were the kind of manner of the wins we were getting, would he still be in a job? Do you think it's kind of like how convincing the wins have been has just kind of saved him?
I don't want to talk for Gary here because Gary will have his opinion in a second. But Gary's always been saying for a long time we're very, very close to being a good team. And I don't think he's wrong, but it's taking a little bit longer to get there. You love your stats, Sim. Every league game we've won this season has been by 2 goals or more. Every game we've lost has been by a single goal. You look at the league table, Chelsea have pretty much got the same goals scored, goals conceded, but they're 11 points better off. So I think the manner in which we're winning games is great. Listen, to thump anybody is great. But actually, we need to start scraping wins. And for me, that's all about managing a game and taking situations as they come. So I think if we... Listen, I don't want to win 1-0 with Son cross against Watford that goes past the goalkeeper. Like Fulham, we needed to see that game out and win it 1-0, and we didn't. So I think... You know, you haven't asked me this question, but if you ask me if I want Ange out, the answer is no. I want Ange to sort it out. And I think finding that balance and scraping those wins, look, go out with the mindset you're going to smash a team, great. But it doesn't always happen in games, certainly in the Premier League. So manage games better, and then I think we will be where we want to be.
And I think the other thing to that is, as much as that might be saving him, and it could be a blessing, it's also a curse. Because as Johnny says, we're not eking out those 1-goal wins or turning those defeats into draws and picking up those points with hard-fought wins. You know, the reality is, if we're not blowing a team away, how confident are we in the 70th minute that we're going to see it through? Like, I agree. I don't want to be seeing a scrape through 1-0 with, you know, Conte, Mourinho, Nuno type of performance. At the same time, when you're 2-0 up at home to Chelsea after 15 minutes, quite happy to see us really go into quite a deep block and make it really tough for them to score and hit them on the break. You know, I don't mind that. And to me, that's what we should have been doing. And that's where the criticism lies when it comes to those sorts of results, in my view.
I hear that, and I was looking at some more stats. There was a graph I was seeing about position in the league compared to goal difference after 16 games, and obviously we've got plus 17 goal difference, and the stats showed in the Premier League history, no team has ever been outside the top 4 with such a strong goal difference after 16 games, and we're 10th. Which is crazy. But for you, Gary, obviously, as you were saying, I know at the beginning of the season, I mean, look, I've been watching all your episodes, and at the beginning of the season, you were very much like firmly like convinced, or not convinced, but very excited about where we're heading as a team and the football we're playing. I've definitely seen you waver in the last few weeks about, you know, frustration about game management and all these kind of things. For you, like, when in terms of where you stand with Ange Postecoglou, is he a few losses in a row away from you think being fully Ange out, or are you still kind of willing to give it more time in terms of, is it just like, you know what, to see where we are at the end of the season kind of thing, or are you like very much he's on borrowed time at the moment?
You talk about like, where would I be if we have a few losses? It's not as granular as that. It's how have those losses come about? How have we played? What's actually gone on? At the beginning of the season, I thought we had a squad that was capable of challenging for top 4 and capable of pushing for the Europa League. So my ambitions for the season were, if we finished 4th, 5th, 6th and won the Europa League, that would be a great season. And that's what I thought the squad was capable of. So when I spoke at the beginning of the season about having a squad that I was fairly happy with, in that regard, yeah, it's not a squad that's capable of challenging for the league. We know that. We're a little way off that. But I did feel confident going into the season. And I think, you know, people are getting sort of very upset about squad depth and this and that at the minute, while simultaneously expecting us to go to Bournemouth and win. Well, there's a bit of a juxtaposition there, right? Either the squad depth isn't there, in which case you say you go to Bournemouth and don't expect us to win, but everybody did expect us to win. They expect us to go and get a result. So where my frustration is at the minute is very much in some of the usage of the squad. I've been banging the drum for Jed Spence. I'm over here on this pod. I'm the chairman of the Jed Spence fan club. I cannot for the life of me understand why he hasn't been used a lot more than he has. And hopefully, you know, the other night he started to show why we think that. I know you guys think that as well. I've been watching a bit. You think similarly. So I think there's been problems in terms of the usage of the squad. But as I say, it's also tactically for me where I think I love Ange's principles. I love his philosophy. I love what he stands for. And I don't want him to give that up. But I do think there are times when, for example, you know, against Fulham at home, when suddenly we're hearing that squad read out or that team read out and Solanke's out of it, never mind anybody else, right? You know, it's another one and everybody's going, oh, God, blimey. You know, in games like that, get gritty, sit in. You haven't got to go and smash teams every single week. You can dig out the results. And that's where my frustration is coming a little bit.
You're right about his principles, but what happens to your principles when you die? They die with you. Like, sometimes you just have to temper it a little bit.
Yeah, but you know, where I'm wavering is, you know, I'll take Rangers away, for example. Everybody's sort of talking about this front foot football that we're meant to be playing and so on. And if it was front foot, hell for leather football all the time, then there may be one thing. But Rangers was, I'm sorry, it was boring. It was a dross game. I thought both teams were poor. There wasn't much going on. So I don't know, like, just sometimes where my wavering has come has been with Ange getting things wrong. I think substitutions as well against Fulham, against Bournemouth were wrong. And so that's where the wavering belief in Ange comes a little bit. But I do think that if we get players back, fit, then we can really have a strong second half of the season. Because I stick by what I've been saying. I think we are closer to being a very strong team than people realise.
I agree. I think, look, having 10 first-team players out like we did on the week, albeit we won 5-0, but, 10 first-team players, that would take its toll on any squad, let alone like us, where if that happens, I know if Chelsea had 10 first-team players out, they've probably got like another 10, 20 million signings in there who they've spent £1 billion. So like there's probably players that they're not even getting a look in their squads at the moment who will probably make our squad at the moment. So it definitely hurts us. And especially, Richarlison's had continuous injury problems. We've got three at the moment first choice centre backs, three first team centre backs at the moment out. We saw when Arsenal missed like Saliba for an extended period, how much that was one centre back and how much that hurt them. Odegaard was out for a couple of months at the beginning of this season, how much that hurt them.
Okay. And they still can't.
Yeah, exactly. So like people say injuries is just an excuse, but I think it is an excuse for one-off games. When it's an extended period, I do think that is something that you have to kind of caveat with.
But then is there not all the more reason then that you need to utilise your squad, right? We were told in the summer that we're not going after a central midfielder because we're so happy with Gray and Bergvall. We're not going after a fullback because we're so happy with Spence. There's 3 players there that are fit that could have taken many more minutes to relieve the pressure.
Yeah, they started 3 Premier League games between them now. Right. And 2 of them were on.
And this is what I'm saying about, the squad. And I go back to something that Ange said at the beginning of the season where he said, the results the games haven't quite played out in the way that I wanted in order to give some of the squad more minutes. And I'm thinking to myself, hang on, first 3 games of the season, you've got Newcastle away and Arsenal at home. What were you thinking would happen that you would get more minutes to these guys? Like, there's a bit of a disconnect between some of the things that he's said and the minutes that he's giving some of the players. And that's a frustration to me because I think you've got some really talented footballers there and they're not going to learn, they're not going to grow sitting on the bench. And personally, I'd rather see Bergvall making mistakes than a Højbjerg, for example. I know it's not there anymore, but do you know what I mean? It's use these players, take the pressure off the others. Maybe you save 1 or 2 injuries.
So can I ask you? I mean, this is your pod. I'm not supposed to be asking you.
Go for it. No, please ask away.
You go home and away. You spend a lot of money on this football club. What do you think at the moment?
Look, for me, obviously, being in 10th place, I don't think is a good enough position for where the squad we have, and especially with the time. If this is Ange's first season, you could probably give him a bit more grace. But the fact that he's now been in the job 18 months, of course, that is not a position that we should be in. And if you told me at the beginning of the season, after 16 games, we'd be in 10th place, I'll be like, this guy's going to be banging trouble. Of course. And I think of course, that's why there's a lot of pressure on him. For me, how I just feel about the situation when it comes to Ange Postecoglou, first of all, the league is very extraordinary tie, isn't it? 6 points between 4th and 13th. So literally a couple of games, you can be right exactly where we want to be challenging, and a couple of losses, and all of a sudden we're in 13th, and people are saying we're going to be in a relegation battle. So I understand the swings in the mood at the moment. So for me, I'm kind of like, as long as the league is that tight, and we're kind of, at the moment, I'm giving them a bit of grace because of this injury crisis. And as long as the league is so tight, once we start getting players back, a couple of games' time, we're going to have Bentancur back. Hopefully, soon after that, we're going to have Davis and Van der Ven back. All of a sudden, you're going to have options again. And hopefully, we'll have a few more things to play. Maybe we get 1 or 2 additions in January. But the main thing for me is how I see things is that I've accepted that we're not going to be spending, in terms of money, like the money required, I would think. I'm not saying we don't spend, because we do. We probably spend between 100 and 150 million per summer, which is not nothing, which is a good amount of money. But is it enough to, in terms of just purely by spending, close the gap between us and Liverpool and City and Chelsea, just from spending that amount of money? I don't think it is, personally. So the only way, if you're not going to close the gap by spending, you have to do it by stability and time and implementing a project and a process and believing in it and sticking to it. And obviously doing that with the investment that we're doing alongside it. But that's kind of the only way we're going to do it. If we keep chopping and changing and having no stability and just keep thinking whenever something goes wrong, we have to bin the manager when they go through a hard period, I think we're just going to keep going in this cycle where a good start and then we don't have the investment to keep up, so we bin the manager and then sign another manager, and then we have another good start and we kind of have a bit of an uptick, and I don't see that going anywhere. And for me, I think which is positive in a weird way. I think in regimes gone by, like Mourinho and Conte, whatever, Ange would have been gone by now, I think, if we weren't going in a different direction. So I like that he's still here. I like that we've kind of stuck with him for now. And I want to see us just basically go through a process, go through this project and see where we come out on the other side, instead of just we've hit a bad run of form and we're 10th in the league in a snapshot in time and bin it all off. And I think for me, as I said before at the beginning, like if we were winning games like we were under Nuno or even like Mourinho, where we're scraping through and it's not exciting, like, and even like, or even like let's say like Ten Hag was winning games, like you're winning, but you're not convincing when you win. You're not even winning well when you win. When we win, we do win well, and I see enough in those wins for me that I do want to see more of that kind of football. And do I believe, like, am I certain that he can get it done consistently? Obviously, right now the jury's out because he hasn't done it. So apart from the first 10 games, so I'm not going to sit here and say he's definitely going to get that football consistently. I'm convinced of it, but I'm willing to give it a go. I'm willing to see it out. I'm willing to go through this little bit of short-term pain for what could potentially be a lot of upswing. And yes, at the end of the season, if we're finishing in 10th place and we haven't won any trophies, then yeah, at that point I can say, probably let's go in a different direction. But right now we're midway through the season, the league is so tight, like I don't see any upside in changing the manager right now, apart from maybe there'll be a bit of short-term upswing, which we've seen before.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's no point sacking him now. There's not anyone out there. That shouldn't be a reason not to sack your manager. If he's not going well, you sack him when you deal with it. But you're right. I just think he has to find a happy medium, or a medium, in not happy for him, but in certain games. Otherwise,
I agree with you, but
we'll just continue. Even if we sign players that we might think are better than what we've already got, I think we'll still continue on this roller coaster unless he's a little bit more pragmatic.
But what? But in terms of being pragmatic, we have conceded the third least goals in the league. Like, does that need to be top? Like, you know what I mean? I understand. Like, and he also, like, is the criticism we concede too many chances, too many goals? Is it the criticism? Does he rely too much on intensity? And I think that might be the main issue.
Up until the last couple of weeks, this is something that I've been banging on about. That actually, not only is our defence on a par with Arsenal's and you know all the other sort of top teams behind only Liverpool, actually our XG against, and I haven't looked at it in the last couple of weeks, but our XG against has been second in the league, like, you know, second top, so the second lowest XG against in the league. So the idea of pragmatism and so on isn't there in the sense of that, but it is sort of just in the sense of when, like we said at the beginning, when you're 1-0 up against Fulham at home and you've got injury crisis, just grind it out. Show that sort of strength of character. When you're 2-0 up against Chelsea and you've been gifted 2 goals in a game that probably not many of us had too many hopes for, but suddenly you're 2-0 up, grind that out, dig in. Show that bit of
whack
character.
A long ball into the corner, whack it up to Solanke, who was, he was owning Badiashile.
It is things like the pragmatism isn't about sort of the XG against and so on. It's more about things like, at the moment, we're the team that gets the ball back into play quickest. Well, why? When we're 2-0 up against Chelsea,
that's the thing. That I agree with you. I think a big problem at the moment, especially, but I think in general, is that he kind of wants to be the most intense team in the league at every phase of play, at every moment of the game. And sometimes we need to slow down. I don't think it's necessarily being pragmatic. You can still be like, we need to look for more goals going in a certain way, but it's always like we have to be going 100 miles an hour the whole game.
And I think the pressure that you're putting on players doing that, both physically game after game, as well as mentally, you know, I know like the likes of Sarr and Basuma got a lot of stick for the rash challenges they made, but when you are playing at 100 miles per hour the whole time, you don't really have a moment to take a step back, breathe, absorb, clear your head, go again. You see Fulham doing it all the time.
The Leno 5-minute injury.
You see Arsenal doing it all the time. I'm not saying I want us to be them, but there is a bit of gamesmanship that you can bring in. There are those niggly little fouls you can make on the halfway line. There is a player going down for a minute or two with an injury to take the sting out. And Forster, I think somebody else on our pod said it a little while ago, is one of the most experienced keepers in the league. And if he was playing under a different manager at 2-0 up, you can guarantee he would not have got the ball back in play so quickly. And yet there he is, put it down, bang, and we're off. Why? Guys, chill out. Yeah. That's the pragmatism that I think we're talking about.
Yeah.
But is that not maybe the consequence of having a very young squad like we do? I think it's the second youngest squad in the league. Even the signings that we've made for big money, like Van der Ven is like very young. We've got Doggy, Sarr, only in their second seasons in the Premier League. Obviously Gray and Bergvall and players like that we've signed who are obviously teenagers. They're going to have a prominent role in the squad. Is that not something maybe that comes with time? That learning that game management, it won't come immediately.
Chelsea have got the youngest team in the league. We've talked about the stats being similar in the league table, but they're 11 points better off. And Maresco talked about, he kind of gave us almost like a little dig really before the game, where he said, we almost know how Spurs are going to play, and that's great for us. And he was talking about how he looks at every game.
What he said was, he said they asked him about his wins against, I think it was Brighton and I can't remember who it was. There's another team. And he said something on the lines of, look, we've got our philosophy and our principles, but we know that Brighton play a high line. So obviously we prepared to attack that high line. And then in the other game, whichever one it was, I can't quite remember, he said, and in that game, we know that they sit a bit deeper and we'd have to break down a low block. So we worked on that a bit and we adapted the way that we play. And the dig was we adapted the way that we played according to the opposition
that was it.
Without sacrificing our philosophy. And that there to me was like, okay. I mean,
Sim, you were at Bournemouth. We had the whole when Ange came over and he got a bit of stick for the first time. That'll be the first time he's had any stick as a manager for a long time, probably since that famous interview he had when he's with Australia. Listen, Yokohama, they loved him. Celtic, they absolutely adore him. He's been on a good thing here at Spurs for 16, 17 months. And he went over and he said, that was on me. And I felt that was a penny drop moment for Ange. And whilst we're in this injury crisis, there's not a lot he can do. It really is the old cliche, take each game as it comes. I've just got a feeling and a hope that Bournemouth game, when Ange got some stick, he's like, right, this is possibly the biggest club he'll ever manage in the biggest league in the world. He does not want to mess this up. So I'm just wondering whether we might, when everyone comes back, it's probably not going to be till the turn of the year. We might just see whatever the word is, whether it's pragmatism or something else. I think we might just see a little change, and I kind of hope that we do, because I think that's where we'll get to Gary's and other people's belief that actually we're a proper team.
You know what's the situation for me is I thought the team has had two coming of age moments under Ange. One was last season, 4-0 away at Villa Park, and one was this season, 4-0 away at the Etihad. And both those games, I was like, this should be a coming of age moment for this team. This should be a moment where the team really kicks on. And we've completely collapsed in the aftermath of both those games. It's so frustrating.
But it shows
every time you think this team has, turned a big corner, as you say, had a statement win, we never ever back it up, do we? And I wonder, is that a mentality thing? Is that just a consequence of hamstrings? Yeah, I mean, clearly we have a big hamstring problem. Van der Ven, even Ben Davies, I don't think he's had a hamstring injury in 10 years, and he's had a hamstring injury. What's it called, in the last few weeks? Yeah, I mean, it's going to be. I wonder if it's a case of, is Ange football the way he wants to play in terms of having that intensity? If we had a full squad, obviously we're still not the perfect team, even with a full squad, because we had defeats like Palace and Ipswich, and that wasn't because of we had injuries or anything at that time. But if we did have a full squad and he was able to make rotations and a bigger squad, look, you said Chelsea, which is fair enough, but look at the options he has. It's absolutely crazy. Like, in each position, that front line, he's got his bench is probably worth more than our whole team. He's got spent 1.5 billion. He's like, Nkunku was 50 million. João Felix was big money. Like, they signed Sancho when they didn't even need to sign Sancho for big money. They got Palmer obviously for like 50 million. They've got an unbelievable amount of options, don't they? So maybe he has the tools to chop and change. Well, maybe Ange doesn't.
That's all the more reason to have grabbed that 2-goal lead. That's all the more reason to have sat back a little bit and said, and let me ask you this question, because this is something we discussed on the pod. I don't know if you saw this one, because the question from me was, the frustration is that we showed against City twice
in the home, especially in
the home game, but also in the away game. We showed against City we can sit in and we can defend and we can really hurt good teams on the break. You can say what you like about where City are at the minute. The point is, as an attacking force and pushing back, we were disciplined. We defended really well. We limited them to very little in both of those games. So, having shown that we could do it, why did we not do that against Chelsea? Why did we not sit in and make it really? Because they tore through us so easily because we're pressing and they're a good footballing team and they just passed it around us. And I think your mate
John McKenzie.
John McKenzie wrote an article quite early on saying you can press like this, but the Premier League will find you out, and the good teams will play their way around you. And
you said that in June 2023, and talking about Ange before it even started.
And that Chelsea game showed it. So you talk about the depth of the squad, and to me, that was more reason even to protect the likes of Van de Ven in that game. Don't make him defend on the halfway line. Sit in deep. We've had 2 big successes against City playing that way recently. Why did we not do it?
Fair enough. All right, let's go on to the next topic. I want to talk about 2 players who, for me, especially, in recent weeks, have been coming in for quite a lot of criticism I've seen for these 2. Our 2 probably main attackers in terms of James Maddison and Heung-min Son. Now, these are 2 players who... Especially Maddison, he's got accusations of obviously being inconsistent. A lot of people before the Southampton game anyway were saying he's having a poor season. A lot of people on Twitter I was even suggesting, has he been a bad signing? Has he been a waste of money? And he's not really been doing it for Tottenham. Son has had constant accusations of always being finished and washed whenever he has a bad run of games. People are always ready to saying this is the end of Heung-min Son. I'm looking at some of the numbers behind their seasons, and Maddison has 11 goal contributions in 13 starts. Son has 11 goal contributions in 12 starts. Like, what do we expect from them? Like, for me, I'll pose a question. I'll start with Gary, I guess. For you, how do you assess their seasons? Has the criticism been overblown? Do you think criticism for them been justified? Like, how do you feel about how they're going this season?
I think, look, before we get into that, we had Jake Sanders on the show who said something which was just fundamentally true, that if Tottenham Hotspur are losing games and James Maddison is on the bench, there's a fundamental problem. And that has been happening, right? And so that's the first thing. And the reason I start with that is because you've got to get your best footballers into the team at all moments. And James Maddison is certainly one of the best footballers that we've got. I thought he started the season well with Kulusevski alongside him. And I thought that looked like a good partnership. I think West Ham showed some of fragility in that formation. And that's when it started to kind of go wrong for Maddison. But at the end of the day, he's a player that we have to get more involved in games because he's the only one really with that ability constantly to unlock defences and create something from nothing. I think any Spurs fan would always rather Maddison in the team than on the bench. So form, no form, whatever it is, he needs to be in the team. As for Son, this is a really difficult one because as you go back through Son's career, he's always been a patch player. He goes through these purple patches and then nothing and so on. And he's always faced this sort of criticism of, is he finished or whatever? But again, the reality is the guy has so much quality. The assists that he's got this season, some of the crosses that he's been putting in have been, Beckham would put his name to them. And, I guess where the criticism is people want to see Son, I guess, taking his fullback on more, destroying them like he did Trippier. I don't know that's really Son's natural game. So I don't know. I certainly don't think Son is finished. And if you look at our squad, again, it doesn't really matter what form Son is in. He is your left winger. There is no question about it. And if you're losing games and Son isn't in the team, then that's a manager problem straight away. I think we have to come to a point with Son, though, where over the next season, I wouldn't say phased out, but I'd like to see him coming on after 60 minutes as an impact sub, where he can really hurt a tired fullback or a tired team. So you can't keep relying on him, and you need to succession plan. And I think that's where we are more with Son, rather than a question about his form or ability.
When we're looking at their numbers, though, their numbers are pretty strong in terms of how much they are providing for the team from an attacking point. So. Are we saying that they're not doing enough output, or is it when we're looking at their performance-wise, maybe their output is maybe overshadowing some of their poor performances? Is that what we're thinking when it comes to maybe why they're getting the criticism?
I think for Son, he's done things in the last year or so, done things that we've not seen much from him, which is mainly not hit the target when he shoots. He had one over the bar. Was it Ipswich this season? I can't remember.
It was Roma, I remember there was definitely one.
Roma,
and Chelsea missed a big chance,
Yeah, and he had the one
against Chelsea.
Wide against Chelsea. He had a similar chance to the Roma game in the game last season. Maybe it was Palace. A couple of one-on-ones he's missed recently. I think he's got 168 goals for the club, I think, in all competitions. That's a ridiculous amount of goals. I think people are just looking at going, well, if he's not finishing, what else is he doing? Well, listen, for me, like you said, if Son's not on the team and we're not winning a game, well, why is he not playing? His legs are probably starting to go. He's 32, is he now? We can see his minutes are starting to be managed. I'm not ready to get rid of him. I'll be happy for the club to trigger a 1-year contract, as you says, Gaz, it's succession plan. That the guy that is it Hyuk who arrived yesterday, he's obviously there will be comparisons, and that's going to weigh on the guy's shoulders the entire time he's at the club. He, for me, is not the natural succession plan. He's too young. And as for Maddison, I said at the start of the season, I always like to pick on someone I'm going to pick on all season, and it was James Maddison, because I don't think he did enough last season, not to justify the price tag. I couldn't care about that. It's to justify his own ability. And actually, I think this season in patches, a bit like the rest of the team, really. I think he's mirroring the team form, but he hasn't done as badly as I would like to have hoped to beat him with that stick with. I think he's been actually pretty good. I actually think there are other players who could come into criticism, and Maddison isn't one of them.
I think the big issue is with Maddison and Son, when you've got a team that's struggling, people are looking at your big players to drag you through.
And then the leadership group.
And the leadership group, quite right. And that's where I think the big criticism comes. I'm looking at this squad, and when it's going against us, I don't know who I'm looking at. Kulusevski is the one I'm looking at, probably, to who's manning up and demanding that ball and trying to take the game to the opposition. But I think that's where the criticism of Son and Maddison comes. When it's going against us, are they stepping up enough? Are they puffing out their chest and dragging the team up? And that's where my criticism comes. I don't see them as those natural leaders, but in terms of their ability and output, overall, you can't really complain too much.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, do you reckon it's just a case of if the results have been a bit better, I don't think anyone would be complaining about their outwall them for this season, because of everyone would be saying that actually they're having great seasons. You look at their stats, goals and assists, they're doing brilliant. But because we're 10th in the league, and they're part of the leadership group, they take a lot of that brunt of that criticism.
I think if the results were better, people would be less complaining about most things, to be honest.
Yeah, I think you're probably right about that.
Where Son comes in for criticism mostly is in games like, for example,
I always feel like Gary's texting someone at this point.
I'm trying to look up things. I'm trying to remember that there've been a couple of games where we've lost and Son's been anonymous, and he's had he may as well not have been there, right? And that's kind of alluded to the point that I was making earlier. I can't remember which games it was, but it's after those games where people are, Son was rubbish and this, that. Players are entitled to have a bad game. That's fine. But, what I always want to see, particularly as you say in that leadership group, as your experienced pros, as the guys that we should be looking at to be helping the team most when we're struggling, that's when you want to be getting the ball to Son and saying, go and do something, make something happen for us. Or Maddison makes it. It's all well and good when we're playing this beautiful flowing football and the team is cohesive. That's all great. And Maddison and Son are going to be fantastic at those moments. But when you're playing, and Son didn't play against Palace, but when you're Palace away and it's turgid and it's horrible and it's nasty and they're stopping the game at every minute, that's when you want to be getting the ball to a Son or a Maddison and saying, just make something happen for us here, bail us out. And that's where I think they don't do enough, and that's where the criticism comes.
He scored 17 goals in the league last season, which is his joint second best return for Spurs after 23 and 21-22. He's lost his mate. He's lost Harry Kane. We know the numbers they provided for each other. And to still go and score 17 league goals, and probably barely, we've got one penalty did we get last season?
Yeah.
Probably 15, 16 from open play. He's got 5 this season, so he's on course for 15 again if he keeps that average up. I'm not ready to have that conversation on him yet.
Let's have it right, okay? Any player on any given game can attract criticism because that's the name of the game, right? You can call out a player for having a bad game, doesn't matter who they are. But when it's all said and done, Son is an absolute club legend, always will be a club legend, should be adored by every single fan and heralded and held up as, one of the greatest ever Tottenham players. It goes without saying.
Yeah, but has he ever won a trophy?
What are your thoughts about him as the captain since he's taken that role as the club captain? Do you think he is a good captain? Do you think he's got good leadership skills, or do you like the Roy Keane type of captains who drag your teams out? What do you think?
I don't know him. Listen, he comes across as an absolute legend, a lovely guy, or you hear about him, he's being such a lovely touch. Maybe he's too soft a touch. I don't know what he's like as a captain. He's captain of his country. That's got to help you. But actually, unfortunately, the problem we have, we don't actually have that many other options. No one really stands out as captain.
Well, there is one now, to be honest, who's emerged. Kulusevski has
but
emerged.
just let him be Kulu for now.
Yeah, no, I mean, you can't take it off in mid-season. But I think Kulusevski is emerging both for Sweden and Tottenham as a guy that stands up and wants to fight. I always want a Roy Keane type of character in the team. Always. I think that's exactly.
You modelled your career on Roy Keane.
I was more Stefan Freud, but, sadly. But yeah, no. I mean, I always want that sort of character in the team, and I think if you've got somebody like that, then that's the natural leader. In the Spurs leadership group, I mean, I'm probably the wrong person to ask because I was sort of making a case for Christian Romero at one point to be captain, and I've completely turned on that now. As is our prerogative, we're allowed to change our opinions. But
flip-flopping, he's called.
Yeah, things evolve. You see things, and maybe you see different things. But no, I mean, going back to the Roy Keane thing, I saw Christian Romero as the natural on-pitch leader, and so on. But at the end of the day, I always sort of felt that Son should be that. I can't remember when it was. We had like a club ambassador and then an on-pitch captain, and I'd prefer to see that kind of a model where Son is very clearly the club ambassador, the guy that brings the young players into the squad, makes them feel at home, makes sure they're integrated. Is out there doing all the media bits and everything. He is such a great ambassador for the club and such a great leader off the pitch, I think. And that's where the question is. I think he is a great leader off the pitch. On the pitch, I'd much rather see a Roy Keane character if we had one. We don't. So going forwards, as it stands, I'd give it to Kulusevski.
Interesting. And on the other side of that as well, Maddison obviously became part of the leadership group just after signing. Like, that was one of the first things that we did after we signed, was put him part of that leadership group. And, I always feel like it's a bit weird to make a new signing, like a vice captain or something, make him a leader straight away, because I always feel like that's something you have to earn. You have to earn the respect of the squad instead of it just being handed to you. I guess like it was with James Maddison. So 18 months in, he's been captain a few times, as you say, Gary. Like, there are definitely some games where we're losing, or we're there's tough games, and he just seems to be shirking responsibility. Like, do you feel like giving him that vice captaincy so soon after joining the club was a bit of an error?
My very short answer is I think he's too emotional to be a captain, personally.
In what way? What he reacts too much to situations?
I think he's too reactive. I think he also gets too emotional in his own form. I think you see when he gets substituted. I mean, Son gets annoyed when he's substituted. We've seen that this season. But I think James Maddison wears his form too much. I think he needs to concentrate on his own game and not anybody else's.
Okay, fair enough. Let's touch on the game on Thursday then, because obviously it is a very, very big game in the context of our season, in terms of we all want that trophy drought to end. We all want Spurs to kind of, haven't won a trophy since 2008. There's no surprise. We all know the situation. Thursday, coming up against the Man United side, who've just won the Manchester derby in spectacular circumstances with that late turnaround. But look, Ange has got some selection headaches going into Thursday, because obviously Spence and Bergvall started on Sunday and performed quite well. Got their first starts in the Spurs shirt. Porro and Basuma aren't going to be available for Thursday. We'll have to wait and see what Udogie his situation is. But with the game being such a big game on Thursday in our season, does Ange go with the players that came into the team on Sunday and say, look, you came in, you performed well, and that's your reward? Or does he say, it's such a big game, we just need the players, the best players, I believe, for the job, and go with that experience and go with Porro and Basuma?
I think it's more than just about the selection headache for Thursday. It's also, we've got a massive game on Sunday against Liverpool. And you could say go with the same players that started against Southampton. But Spence and Bergvall haven't started a Premier League game before. I don't think Archie Gray has either, has he? So you've got three kids there.
Gray's started two now, I think, after yesterday and then the Bournemouth game.
Two. Yeah. Okay, so you've got three kids there that have between them started 4 Premier League games. To ask them to play Thursday and then on Sunday again would be a hell of a lot. So we all want to get through. We all want to beat United. I think United are there to be beaten as well. I would go. I think it's one of them where, as big a game as Liverpool is, actually, we should go as strong as we have available against United. See how that pans out, and then deal with Liverpool when it comes. So I would be starting Porro certainly, and Basuma, and you might say, well, the chairman of the Jed Spence fan club, why not Spence? Honestly, I'd keep Spence back to play against Salah for Liverpool. I think he would do a much better job against Salah than Porro would, if I'm honest. I remember who was it for Arsenal?
Spence's going to have to play. No, but Salah plays on the right.
Yeah, Salah will be on the other side.
He'll probably do it, but to be fair,
Unless Spence could play left back, to be honest, because the doggy might not be fit.
Trevor, I think Spence against Liverpool would be a better option. But yeah, I'd go Porro, Udogie, Basuma in midfield with Sarr, Maddison, Kulusevski, Son, Solanke.
Yeah.
Have I missed somebody out? No, I don't think so.
Well, the centre halves picked themselves.
The centre halves, yeah, but
yeah. Obviously, Son coming off a half time is probably a good indication you're saving him for this game for sure. I hope. Look, we have to wait. Sorry, we have to wait and see what the fitness is like for Udogie. Do you think he brought Dorrington on the weekend just in case there is something wrong with an Udogie or something, or he might have to put Gray at fullback, and maybe he's like, let's give Dorrington a field of Premier League action just in case we need him, because at the moment, and one or two injuries, he's in the team, isn't he?
Yeah, I don't think he's ready to start him. I think at 5-0 up away to Southampton, you can bring you on for your first appearance.
But he might have to play him. If we've got another injury or two, won't we?
Yeah, we're probably one centre half away from it happening. I can't see what other options he really has. Someone on Twitter recently said Benson could play there. No. Yeah, listen, you've got to get your first taste of action at some point, and 5-0 away. We thought maybe it'd be Tamworth with these guys might get a game, but it may be before. So getting them on when you're 5-0 up with 10 minutes to go is absolutely perfect. But I can't see them starting on Thursday.
In terms of how important it is for you guys in terms of our season, obviously before even that Southampton game, there were suggestions that if he was to lose the next two games,
Right,
for you, go on. I'll go to Gary on this one. Like, for you, knowing the context of the trophy drought and everything, for a lot of people, this is at the moment our most important game of the season, and a lot of people thinking it's our best route to a trophy maybe this season. So for you, how important is it? And if he does lose, and that's another avenue for a trophy gone, how much pressure does he come under if he will lose that game?
Look, again, as I said earlier, it's always going to be about the manner of the defeat and how you've lost, right? If it is a disastrous defeat, then that's going to raise its own questions. If we've played really well and United have jammed in 2 goals in the 89th and 90th minute, that's a different matter, right? So I don't know about the manner of the defeat. It is an important game. It's always the most important game until the very next game. And the very next game is going to be the most important game, after that. The trophy drought... Look, I know where you're going at with this because you picked me up on it. I said, out of Liverpool and United, which game would I rather win? For me, the measure of our team at the minute is not in winning the League Cup. That's not going to tell us where we are as a team. And I don't think it does huge amounts for us going forwards. The game is about glory. Yes, we should want to win it. I'll be absolutely delighted to win it. Like, I will be. But if you said to me, we'll win the League Cup and finish 13th in the league this season, no, not for me. I'm not having that. That's not a good season. That is not a good season. All right. I said at the top, my ambitions for the season were 4th, 5th, or 6th, and the Europa League. I think we should be going very, very, very deep in the Europa League. I mean, I've booked my plane tickets already, so I'm pretty confident we'll get there. I think we should get there, and I think winning the Europa League with the prestige that it has. It's a big European trophy. It carries a big prize to it with Champions League qualification. I'd much, much rather be winning that. But at the same time, that's not to sort of downplay the importance of Thursday. I want us to win a trophy. And if we end up 6th in the league and having won the League Cup, that's a decent season.
I agree with you. Like, finishing mid-table and winning a League Cup, we saw, other managers who've been sacked for something similar, albeit maybe at bigger clubs, you could argue. But Do you think maybe it's just the context? Do you think it's just the context of this trophy drought that makes everyone so desperate to just get any sort of cup over the line? And is there no wavering for you? Like, if it's another 10 years, are you still in the same position, or is there any breaking point where you're like, you know what, just get this cup by hook or by crook?
The sad truth is that the fault of this lies with the FA and English football, that they've devalued the League Cup to such a point that it really means nothing. We have, you know, I mean, a pot is a pot, yeah, fine, and it's lovely, and it's a great day out, and so on, and it goes down in the club records. But as I say, I just don't think it is something that is the measure of where we are as a team. It's not going to tell us suddenly. The argument against that is winning breeds winning, but it never really has in the past. It didn't in 2008. Right? Do you know what I mean?
Well, not for, it seems to for other teams, but not really for Spurs.
Not really. It does for the top 5 teams who have dominated 87% of trophies in the last 24 years. Like, it does for other teams, but what other team? You know, the only other team that's won more than one trophy is Leicester, which is a complete anomaly. So winning hasn't bred winning. It didn't do it for Birmingham. It didn't do it for Swansea. It didn't do it for how many other clubs at Portsmouth or any. You know, it hasn't done it for any of these clubs. So winning doesn't necessarily. What does breed winning is winning league games consistently. Winning one league game, then another, then another, then another, and building that momentum and becoming a bloody good Premier League team. And if you become a bloody good Premier League team, the trophies sequentially should follow, as they should have done in the Poch era, because we were the best Premier League team for 2 seasons, in my view, under Poch. How we didn't win the league or win trophies is absolutely beyond me. But we were the best team under Poch, and it should have resulted in trophies, and we had the opportunity to win those trophies as well. So that's what I'm saying. We want to talk about winning, breeding, winning. It is about becoming a really strong Premier League team, and your chances of winning trophies consistently goes up. But winning a League Cup and finishing 10th is no indication at all that you're going to win anything else again for the next however many years.
Ironically, you talk about devaluing. I actually think they've devalued the FA Cup more than they've devalued the League Cup.
They've devalued both.
I think also, ironically, that I think the only other league across Europe now with big league with a League Cup as well is Portugal. So Amorim will be well aware of how to rotate teams. You know, you can't play Tamworth in the League Cup. You're going to play one of the other 92 Football League clubs. It's not an easy competition to win. If we do win it, you'd imagine, based on the fixtures, that Arsenal, Newcastle and Liverpool would be on the other side. One of those may get a turnaround that we don't expect. You don't know. But for me, this is a really important game. Yes, to get the monkey off the back, but I think we're a long way from winning it. Even if we beat United with 3 games from winning it, you've got a 2-legged tie against someone pretty good, and you've got to get to Wembley final and win that. I think it's an important game because going back to the first question, really, you asked him, is he still under pressure? He's under a little bit of pressure, and losing a cup game with all the noise that comes with Tottenham, mostly from the outside, but also our fans wanting to win a trophy. As you said, losing another opportunity to win a cup, it's not going to do him any favours, especially with what he said. He put
always win a trophy, yeah.
I wish he hadn't said that for himself and Bob, really. So losing to Man United, listen, not a great side, but losing to Man United is not
the end of the world.
It's not the end of the world, but I think we should be beating them at home. I don't think they're much cop at the moment, even though they went and did what they did on Sunday. But I think it puts himself under pressure because of the noise that surrounds Tottenham. We just don't need. I want to win a trophy because to get the monkey off our back and to shut fans up. But I agree.
Go on. Yeah. How do you feel like?
I'd agree that finishing 13th and winning the League Cup isn't a great season, but at least we got it to fall back on.
How do you think Ange looks at it, though? Because he knows that coming into this club, the furor about trophies, and like if he could be that manager who breaks a trophy duck after 14 years, you know, that would be seen as a massive achievement, all this kind of stuff. But as you know, as Gary said, if we do finish the League Cup and, you know, finish 13th or whatever, does that buy him time? Does, like, for example, if like would he still be in a job at the end of the season? But he would be the manager who break the trophy duck, and that was like a big thing coming in. But how would he see it? Would he see it as something that could buy him time, or would he see it as actually what buys me time is in the league position, so I'm better off not prioritising it?
The league position is the measure of where you are as a team. Okay, and if you're finishing 13th, there is something fundamentally wrong. It didn't buy Juan de Ramos time. I mean, it bought him 8 games in the rest of the season and in the next season. But, you know, it's not the measure of the team. If he wins the League Cup and finishes 6th, then he's got a bit of credit in his bank and he's got a bit of time.
Yeah, and you win the League Cup in February, so you've still got 3 months of the league
on that
season.
basis, then would you not blame him if he did go slightly weaker on Thursday?
No, I wouldn't blame him. I wouldn't, and I know that I think this is the conversation. This is where you wanted to go, right? I think I would play the strongest team at the minute, number one, because I don't really think we've got too many options to beat.
All right, if everybody was fit, I think he would pick his strongest team on Thursday.
If everybody was fit right now,
he'd pick everyone. I'm convinced.
But hang on, we're talking about complete hypotheticals. Number one, if everybody was fit right now, I don't think we'd be 10th in the league. Okay, I think we'd be probably 5th or 6th and a couple of points off the top 4. And people might be saying, well, actually, is Liverpool the bigger game at this point? It could well be. It's a completely different scenario. But imagining that everybody was fit, everybody returns to fitness magically for Thursday night, I would still go weaker and save them for Sunday against Liverpool, is my view.
I think it's a week where we would
I'm going to get absolute pelters for that. I know. You're the problem. You don't want to win a trophy. I'm not saying I don't want to win a trophy. I'm not saying that the game isn't about glory. It absolutely is about glory, right? But I just think that if we are to really take a look of where are we, then the League Cup is not going to tell us that.
I think if we were fit, everyone would play Thursday and everyone would play Sunday, maybe by one sort of a central midfield change where we're a little bit blessed. I think he would go strong and strong again.
Yeah, I agree with that. And look, obviously, I think what Gary's saying, I probably would agree with you, a few years ago when we were under Pochettino, and I think when we were challenging for things. Right now, yeah, look, we could still get top 4 and stuff like that, but we're not going to be anywhere near challenging for the league or anything like that. And if we do lose to Liverpool, sorry?
Is that not the problem then? The reason that you were more on my page under Pochettino is because you had belief that we could challenge for the league, Champions League, bigger trophy.
Correct.
So that's really the problem, right? Is that's where we want to be. When we are in that position to challenge for those bigger trophies, we're not as fussed about the League Cup. The only reason we're fussed about it now is because people don't think we're capable of much more. That's wrong.
Correct.
That's the wrong view and the wrong opinion, in my opinion. And if that's the only reason for people to be saying, I put value on the League Cup now, then that is a sad state of affairs for where we truly are, in my view. That's not, again, to devalue the League Cup. I want to win it. And if we get to Wembley and we're winning it, believe me, I'll be running around Wembley with my top around my head, as anybody else would be. But it's not a statement of where we are as a club.
But, does a couple of wins in the league make a statement? I mean, I'd rather be in that hat for the semi-final and maybe lose the game against Liverpool where we can recover that situation. Then if we lose to Man United, we're out of the cup, and then we might be Liverpool, but maybe we lose a couple of games and all of a sudden we're back to square one. Maybe we're better off just relying on the league form once our players get back. Obviously he's going to try and win both games. I'm not saying he's going to throw one of them, but I think right now the importance has to be on that League Cup because we need to keep every avenue possible to a trophy. And once that's gone, it's gone. We can't win that this season.
I think right now the importance has to be on winning back-to-back games again and again and again, right? And finding that consistency. So it's an important game in its own right. The consolation of not beating Liverpool is that obviously, they pull further away from Arsenal. So we've got that. So that's nice. But we've also got then a run of, 3 or 4 games out of 5 that are really, in my view, very winnable.
Yeah, but we've done this all season.
No, I know. But I am saying, you've got a run of games where you can say,
Johnny, we've done this for 10 years, not just all season.
What you were saying, we can make those points up. And you're right. After Liverpool, we've got games which you look at on paper and you go, okay, Forest are good, but we should be feeling we go up to Forest and win, right? We just should, okay? Wolves at home, Newcastle at home, Arsenal away, tough one. Everton away, come on. Leicester home, come on. Brentford away, got to be winning that. Do you know what I mean? We've got a run of
Brentford
games.
at home
they've won every game, I think.
Wonderful at home, yeah. Top home scorers, incredible.
I'm sorry, I'd always back us to go to.
No, but I agree with you. I think even more reason to prioritise this League Cup game.
I'm with Sim on this.
No, listen, it's an important game. There's no doubt it's an important game, and I'm going to be nervous as hell on Thursday night and right behind the team and looking forward to a great day out.
Well, that's it. And aside from it all, I'm really, really looking forward to it. I don't know whether we're going to talk about this, but people are moaning about the stadium isn't jumping and whatever. I think it will be on Thursday night. Hopefully we don't, go down early, which always changes the atmosphere. But I'm really, really, really looking forward to it. It's a wonderful stadium. We've not had too many massive cup ties in. We've had a few. But I can't wait. I was so pleased when we came out of that at home.
Yeah, as you touched on it, I think we'll get into that because obviously it is a big home tie on Thursday night, and a lot has been made of atmosphere and stuff around the club, and there was obviously there's 3 supporters groups. They're all kind of on Twitter, called the Return of the Shelf. There's Spurs THFC flags, and there's Spurs song sheet. Now these groups are focused on improving the atmosphere at the stadium. They've been working with the club behind the scenes. You know, they've been doing the tifos. You see the flags now at the stadium. They've been behind that kind of stuff. Spurs song sheets have been behind, you know, getting different kind of songs going at the club and stuff like that. So there's been a concerted effort from these groups to work with the club to try and improve the atmosphere. Now they've announced last week, I think it was on the 13th of December, so 4 days ago, the announcement said the Return of the Shelf, after much deliberation, Return of the Shelf movement has unanimously voted to step away from working with Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. We no longer feel aligned with what the club is trying to achieve or what we are making any progress towards our primary goal. While we remain dedicated to improving the atmosphere and bringing like-minded, passionate fans together, we will now continue as an independent, fan-driven movement. And that was their statement on that. Look, you're 2 match-going fans. You go to home games. I think that it's clear that, you know, atmosphere at times isn't great. And look, I don't think it's a particularly Tottenham issue. I think it's definitely a Premier League issue with rising costs and different demographics of fans that now attend games. Yeah. But for you, how disappointing is that to hear that a fan-led groups that have been trying to improve the atmosphere have stepped away from working with the club because they feel like the club isn't aligned in the same goal?
Obviously really disappointing, and thanks for pointing that out. I didn't know too much about this situation. If that is true, that the club, they don't feel they're getting back from the club what they should be, that's really disappointing and shouldn't be happening. I don't like to talk about that lot up the road too much, but something that Arteta did when he came in, he's grabbed that by the horns, and the club have done so. And we all laugh and joke about these little whatever it is they've got going on at Arsenal, but actually it's working for them. And yes, they're doing
working for them, so they're doing well.
But it started before they started to do well. And I think they've all come together. And I always talk about Arsenal as a bit of a cult. Like, they're just the most bizarre football club. Their fans are absolutely crazy. We all know they all wear the full kit. And what's that mean? That Arsenal are a clothing company that once lost 2-1 to Sheffield United. Like, but something has happened at that club in the last 3 years where they've all just come together. And I think we're at the moment in a similar situation to Man United. Man United have put the season ticket prices up. They didn't even consult with the fan. They just went, we're putting the season tickets up. If you don't engage with your fans, which is what is clearly what is happening now at Spurs, you've got a problem. And I think there's a bit of a slight off tangent. There's a bit of a revisionism about White Hart Lane. Everyone goes, oh, I hate the new stadium. I love the old place. But the old place was... We all loved it. We all grew up, how we started going to Spurs. But it was flat at times. Don't get me wrong. If we were drawing 1-1 at home to Fulham at the old place, it would be flat. But I don't like to hear that the club are not engaging with fans. Because let's be honest, we're the lifeblood of this club. And that disappoints me.
This has been going on for a while, and for some bizarre reason, people have me pinned as a Levy in guy and all of this sort of stuff. I'm neither Levy in nor Levy out. I'm for whatever's best for Tottenham Hotspur, and if something comes along that's better for Tottenham Hotspur, then I'm Levy out. If nothing else comes along that's better for Tottenham Hotspur, then I'm Levy in. Yeah. It's as simple as that. But when it comes to things like this, a big criticism that I've always had of this board has been the disconnect with the fans. And you can see it in examples of so many things. Last season was the upping of prices for members, which went outside of the season ticket prices. That was disgusting. This season, the concession tickets for elders and kids, that's disgusting.
Yeah.
You used to have AGMs where it was open forums and they weren't pre-planned questions. Yeah. And Levy and the board would have to take the questions as they come, and you'd have the right to respond. That doesn't happen anymore. Okay, so there is an increasing disconnect with the fans that isn't right. It's not right on any level. And when the board does that, it is very easy to understand and see how the fan groups become more and more anti the board. So the board aren't actually helping themselves in any way with this. And when you've got fan groups coming together, approaching the club, wanting to work with them to make things better for the fan experience, then we don't know what's gone on. We don't know what's happened in those discussions. We don't know who's accountable within the club. Those are questions that should be asked. And the club should be making a statement of why has it not worked? What's gone wrong? But there's too many things that this board does that are out of kilter with the fans and show a lack of respect and understanding of what the fans want.
Have you seen what's happened whilst we've been on air? They've just announced, so Twitter's obviously going wild again, and probably rightly. The season 1 of the Korean thriller. This is about
Yes.
What's that program?
Squid Games.
Okay. Season 1 of the Korean thriller earned international critical acclaim and became Netflix most watched. Blah blah blah. So for some reason, Netflix have partnered with the club, and at the home game against Liverpool and Wolves, infamous Squid Game guards are going to roam around the stadium in their pink hooded jumpsuits for photo opportunities, and a big giant blimp of the young something doll featured in the red light green light game appearing outside the stadium. As people are saying on Twitter, can we just win some football matches? We don't need this stuff. We don't need light shows, and we don't need this. And you're taking away singing sections and all this sort of stuff. That's what we want. Can we just focus on what makes the team better? And singing sections and tifos and flags probably help that. And Squid Game stuff doesn't really help.
But I'd say as well, right? You've got to take a balanced view on this as well. And the fans don't help themselves. So, for example, you've got the voice of Spurs, James Black, who I think is absolutely fantastic. I love him in the stadium, right? But you get so many fans coming and going, that's not what football's about.
Is that
blah, blah, blah. No. This is the guy that plays in the stands.
He has a guitar, live music. He plays Spurs songs on his guitar,
brilliant. You get so many fans coming and going, that's not what football's about. La, 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 la. This would never. And then with the tifos the other day, I mean, it was hilarious when they were flicking the rubber bands at Ramsdale. I'll give that a pass. But throwing them at Chelsea players, right? Yeah. We're not helping ourselves at times, okay? So it can't just be one way to... And again, people go, oh, he's a Levy apologist. No, I'm looking at it from all angles, okay? The fans don't help themselves, all right? We've got initiatives with brilliant people like James Black, fantastic musician, writing songs for Tottenham. And he's got little sort of... I think he's got 3 or 4 people around the stadium, before the game and after the game doing songs. And it's brilliant. I personally love it. I take my kids along. They love it, right? It's great. It's part of, maybe this is the problem, the new age football experience.
Well, unfortunately, that's what's happened.
But I think it is great. But this is what I'm saying. Sometimes we don't help ourselves with, we don't want this, we don't want that, we don't want a light show. I couldn't give a toss about a light show. Don't care one way or the other. It makes absolutely no difference to me. If they think it helps, crack on, do it. What impact should that have on anybody? It doesn't really make a difference. Just get in there. You've bought a ticket. Get in there. Go along. Support the team. Get behind them. It's as simple as that.
I do think so. As I said before as well, it's all coinciding with a run of bad results. And when you bring it all together, people get very angry and very upset. But that shouldn't detract from the fact that these things need looking at and sorting out.
Yeah, but in terms of, of course, the bad results probably don't help this ill feeling towards the board. Obviously, there is a protest going to be before the Liverpool game. But specifically in terms of the atmosphere, that is something that I think most fans, it's fair to say, know that when that stadium gets going, we know how loud it can be, and we know that it can be absolutely rocking, and the aesthetics, how it's been built, creates this really loud noise. But I feel like the way they've positioned the south wall in terms of the south stand, where it's a beautiful stand, that one-tier stand, 17,000 people, yet they put these premium seats right in the middle of the whole stand, and they kind of market it as this, it's a wall of sound, this blue wall and everything. It's going to be like Dortmund. And yet when I look at Dortmund, they've got all these young fans, energetic, like they probably put the prices down. They've probably got £100 season tickets there, and everyone who's there to make an atmosphere goes every game to create an atmosphere, whatever the game, whatever the situation. Whereas at Tottenham, we've got these $3,000 seats right in the heart of that stand, and it's almost like they're selling it as an attraction rather than actually focusing on creating and building an atmosphere.
And this is the exact point that I was saying, is there has always been a disconnect between the board and the fans, and it's 100% true. Even in the way that they sack Martin Yole, I mean, there's things that this board does that are just wrong. They're wrong, and you can call them out when they're there to be seen. But the way they treat the fans, that the season ticket prices themselves, although prices are going up everywhere, they are unbelievably high. I think you're quite right. Putting corporates in the middle of that stand,
you'd never get that in Dortmund.
When you hear other chairmen sort of talking about 5 million in a transfer deal is not what makes or breaks a transfer, peanuts to football clubs, right? But it's a lot of money to us, the fans, when you're putting our premiums up and whatever. And they could reduce the prices, and it wouldn't make that much difference to anything. And you could improve the fan experience and really sort of bring the young generation through. I mean, the young generation's being priced out of the game. It's very, very difficult for the young generation to come through consistently to football matches. You've got to be in a very privileged position to do that. And I just think that I completely agree with that criticism of the board, 100%.
But how do we go about improving the atmosphere if there isn't going to be a dialogue with the club? If they've ended that now, these fan groups, how do we do it in an independent way? I'm not sure what that looks like.
Can I say something that might get me into trouble? I think sometimes not going 1-0 down would help. I know we were up against Chelsea and it was a strange atmosphere, but I think at the moment fans are not necessarily trusting the team. And I do remember Conte had his issues, but when that run, especially when we beat Arsenal, that stadium was rocking. That stadium has rocked. City in the Champions League, obviously the opening night against Palace was great. Arsenal game under Conte. All right, Sheffield United winner was a last-minute winner. That place
probably the 4-1 loss to Chelsea was quite rocking that night.
Yeah, well, it was an incredible atmosphere for most of the game, and obviously we fell apart at the end. But that place can rock. I want all of these things. If there are initiatives to make the atmosphere better, sometimes though, I think the team need to guide us to it. We all support them, but sometimes it needs to be guided by them. I was watching Rayo Vallecano against Real Madrid the other day. When Rayo were, I think they were just after, as Valverde scored, they were midway through a song. And as the ball went in, they just carried on with the song. Like, you'd never get that. I think sometimes it's cultural. You'd never get that in a Premier League game. If we're singing, "Oh, when the Spurs go marching in," and another team pops a goal in, we're stopping the song. I do think sometimes it's culturally. You talk about Dortmund, and everyone uses that as a yardstick for atmosphere. Sometimes the monotonous drone of that drum is actually quite annoying.
I think as well, that there is. I think you're right. There's a fallacy about English atmospheres. I've been to Anfield and it's been dead, right? Like, absolutely dead. And similarly, Old Trafford and St James's. I've been to all of these places, and I've been like, there's not much going on here. The only place that's consistent is Goodison Park, but that's them going, moaning at the ref.
I know City are going through some sort of poor run, and you could argue about City fans. They just come along for the ride in the last 10 years. Albeit I was only listening on the radio for most of that game in the car. It was dead. It's a Manchester derby. It was dead. Yeah. I think we do big up atmosphere. We've got a great stadium. The atmosphere should and could be better, and there are a number of reasons why. I do think sometimes the team performing helps or hinders that at times.
But I think as well, as I say, if fans want to get in and improve the atmosphere, it's on the fans. Nobody's stopping you singing. Nobody's stopping you going in and getting up and singing at the top of your voice. Like, nobody's.
Well,
stopping
I think the big problem was there was an initiative, or they wanted to basically create a singing section for I think in a couple of games, and they kind of were liaising with the club how to do it, and they had this block, and then basically the club. I'm not 100% sure what exactly happened, but the club basically didn't prioritize singing fans for that singing section, even though they said they would. All they did was they said singing section in when the ticket section or whatever, but they didn't actually make sure there was singing fans in there. And it basically ended up where there was a lot of fans who didn't want to be in a singing section, ended up in that section, and it was a bit of a mess. And I think that's created this misalignment, I guess, what you should say, with these fan groups. But yeah, I guess since we moved to the new stadium, obviously everyone was within their groups in the old stadium. That's all been, maybe they've been split up, and maybe fans, there's not enough like-minded fans or younger fans together in that south stand. Yeah. And I guess that's what these kind of fan groups are trying to fix. And I do commend them for actually giving it a go, because for years, we've definitely lacked something, and we needed someone to step up and try and change it in that way. And they did, obviously, clearly. Apparently, Return of the Shelf gave Tottenham a 22-page dossier about how to improve the stadium, the atmosphere, why the atmosphere is important, what it could do for the club, and all this kind of stuff. And Spurs, took it on board, and they suggested that they did start working together, but now they've ended that relationship. So that is a big disappointment.
It would be interesting to understand from the club's point of view why. Why have they done that? And I don't think the club.
Well, the club haven't stopped. The club haven't stopped. It's the fan groups who have stopped.
No, right, but why has it fallen apart? What's gone wrong? Where's been the disagreement? And I think sometimes the club can communicate a lot more effectively with the fans, and the club should be doing a lot more and work. As I said at the top, they should be working with the fans, particularly fans that definitely want to do a positive thing for the club and make the match going experience even better and get behind the team even more. 100% should be working with that.
Yeah.
Where do you guys sit in the stadium?
Well,
go
on. There you go.
I'm East Upper.
I was
East Upper.
Yeah. I said the posh seats. The posh seats is a West Upper, so I'm about to do myself in here. I was in the South Stand, and I actually have to say I didn't like it. When I started taking my son, who's now 9, I didn't actually go on about the atmosphere. The people I sit around I didn't really like, and I actually always like to see that stand. So now I sit in the West-South corner, and I get to see that stand, get to see the tifos instead of be the tifo. You get a great view. So I'm West Upper.
Where do you
South.
sit?
Are you South? Are you South?
Yeah, South. We're South, right in the heart of it. Yeah. Love it.
I like
On the left-hand side, a bit upper, like row like 50 or something.
Right.
I find it really hard, like against Rangers. I love going to away games, but I like to sit when we're at home, high up on the side. You can get a real good perspective of the game and a real understanding of how the game's going. I just sometimes find, just the way that I watch football from behind the goal, I find it hard to follow the game as well as I can when you're high up on the side.
Can I ask you, Sim? You go to many more away games than me and Gary, most people. Has the atmosphere? You go to an away game. It's been a long time since I did, but there's always singing at the start, and then the game kicks off, and the away fans always really on it more than home fans normally.
Yeah, of course.
Longer. But has the atmosphere, not necessarily just the singing, but the vibe changed a little bit?
In the away, I would say. Well, apparently I wasn't there on the weekend, but Ben was there, and he was saying how it was actually a really good vibe around. I mean, I guess 3 goals in the opening 15 minutes probably helps, but he said the vibe was very good, and everyone was like fully behind Ange, but also consistently singing against the ball. And there was a bit of a weird kind of dichotomy there where they were so kind of but they're so like supportive of Ange at that time, but also singing negative songs at the same time, which is a bit of a weird juxtaposition, I feel. But I think when in the away games I've been, obviously I actually wasn't there at Bournemouth as well, so I don't know, what happened at the end of that game. But
for going to every game, Jesus.
No, I do go to most away games. I was there up in Glasgow, obviously. I think the atmosphere is usually pretty good at away games. Obviously, it's obviously most of the hardcore fans a lot of the time, and they usually don't stop singing unless it's like a really dreadful performance. I was up in City. Atmosphere was amazing on that occasion. I was at Old Trafford as well. That was a brilliant day. So I think in general,
the Ajax video sim is still one of my most favourite videos. By the way.
Oh my God, were you guys there?
No, I wasn't there.
I was in Amsterdam. I wasn't in the stadium. I was in the City ground for the quarter-final. I think I was sat just in front of you or behind you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. You were next to Ben right?
Yeah,
Ben Rotblum, you're next to him. That's right.
A different question, because we're talking about ticket prices and so on, and where there is sort of evidence of that is the ticket prices for away fans. I mean, that was a few seasons ago, coming down to £30.
Mm-hmm. That's a good initiative,
Great initiative. But have you seen a difference in atmosphere in away ends since that?
Actually, I would say yes, because I think at that point, but I don't know when it was implemented, but I remember a few years ago, I felt like the away fans, it was getting worse. The away section, it wasn't as loud, like it wasn't as constant. And I feel like over the past couple of years, since that initiative came in, I do think it's actually gotten better. I do think more. What's it called? It's definitely a lot more vibrant than it was. I think maybe it's not as good as maybe it was like 10, 15 years ago.
The good old days, as we like to call them.
Yeah, the good old days, I guess. But I think in recent years it's been pretty good. I think it's been better actually since Ange has come in. I think actually people are more excited to go to away games and just see attack. Albeit our away form's been terrible, but I think the atmosphere away grounds has been better since Ange has come in, because at least, even in those games where we're losing, there's still like something to be excited about and something to cheer about, having shots on goal and things like that, sensing things are going to happen. When you're sitting there away from home and you're just being penned back for 90 minutes waiting for a counter attack, I think it doesn't lead to Tottenham fans kind of being excited about it. So I do think that the atmosphere's improved since Ange has come in, and I do think that £30 initiative's helped. I actually do, yeah. Which is good. But look, I know you guys got to shoot off soon, so we'll end it there. Appreciate you guys coming on. It's been a brilliant show. Really, really enjoyed having you guys on. Hopefully we'll have you guys on soon. If you want to go check out Echo of Glory, I'm going to post the link in the chat right now. So go over and show them some love. The link is also it's pinned to the title of this video. So you go to the title, you can go subscribe to Echo of Glory. I think 2 podcasts a week at the moment you're doing?
Yeah, we do a pod after each game at the moment. So we'll do a pod, we preview a game. So, for example, this week we'll preview the Liverpool game, We're hoping to have Jamie Carragher on this week, which would be great. And then we'll do a post Liverpool show, which will also be a preview show for our next game. But yeah, 2 a week at the moment.
All right, really appreciate you guys coming on. Look, it's a great podcast. I'm really big fan of their podcast, so go check it out. They have some great guests and they have a really good panel as always, really good discussion about Spurs. So go show them some love and give them a subscribe if you want to see more of them. But Johnny, Gary, lovely to have you on. Thank you very much. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
We'll see you guys very soon. We'll be out with another update in a bit, so we'll see you guys shortly. Like, subscribe and comment, and as always, come on you Spurs.